Ever look around at the world and just kind of wonder why things are the way they are? The weather, the changing seasons, disease, or even just humanity itself? Well, you are definitely not alone. Thousands of years ago, the ancient Greeks were asking exactly the same questions. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the grand epic of Greek mythology, which is basically humanity's earliest, highly imaginative attempt to explain the universe. And trust me, their explanations involved a lot less science and a whole lot more magical loot, intense family drama, and giant sea monsters. It's going to be a fun one.
Okay, let's dive right into this and lay out our mythological roadmap. We've got a great structured journey ahead. We'll kick things off at the very creation of the cosmos in the primordial era, then move into the new management under the reign of Olympus. After that, we'll look at the struggling dawn of humanity. And finally, we'll break down the age of heroes by comparing the wildly different quests of Perseus and Heracles.
Section 1. The Primordial Era. Cyclical Rebellion.
So in the very beginning, there really wasn't much going on. But then, a lonely Earth sprouted a bunch of sentient geographical features, and one of them was a sentient sky. Sky was her absolute favorite, so he got to be in charge of the whole shebang, which led to the birth of the very first primordial deities and the mighty Titans. But as you might guess, Sky and Earth's relationship quickly hit a massive snag. Some of their kids were, well, let's just say a little too monstrous for Sky's liking. So the Sky Dad decided to just bury them deep within a cosmic jail called Tartarus. Now, this made Earth Mom incredibly sad and fiercely angry. So what does she do? She crafts a weapon and tells her normal-looking Titan son, Kronos, to usurp his father. Kronos ambushes his dad, neuters him with a massive jagged sickle, and boom, he effectively takes over the entire universe.
And this brilliantly illustrates a dark irony in these ancient tales that is just fascinating. Cyclical abuse. You see, once Kronos was actually in charge, he realized, wait a minute, my own kids might overthrow me exactly like I did to my dad. So he decided to simply swallow his children whole the second they were born. Talk about a toxic parenting strategy, right? But his wife, Rhea, tricked him. She handed him a literal rock wrapped in swaddling clothes instead of her sixth kid, Zeus. Baby Zeus was then hidden away in a cave, guarded by legendary warriors called the Quirites. These guys constantly clashed their spears and shields together just to drown out the baby's crying, so Cronus wouldn't hear a thing. Fast forward, Zeus grows up, spikes his dad's drink, makes him throw up his fully grown siblings, and sparks an epic 10-year war for control of the cosmos.
Section 2. The Reign of Olympus. New Management.
To actually win that 10-year war, Zeus and his siblings had to venture all the way down into Tartarus and free the very prisoners their grandfather had originally locked away. In return, those prisoners forged some incredible weapons, including Zeus's iconic lightning bolts. Armed with this new loot, they tossed the Titans into God jail and took charge. And the new management structure was highly delegated, almost like a corporate restructure. The brothers drew lots. Zeus became the big boss of the sky, Poseidon got the ocean, and Hades kinda drew the short straw and was sent down to manage the dead in the underworld. Demeter controlled the weather and agriculture, and their kids just as wildly powerful. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, literally popped fully clad in battle armor out of Zeus's split skull after he had a severe headache. No way to make that sound normal. And then there's Hermes, the swift messenger god, who famously invented a musical lyre out of a turtle shell and cow guts on his very first day of life, basically just to smooth things over and become best friends with Apollo. Now, these wild, highly dysfunctional, godly interactions directly explain the natural world to the ancient Greeks. For instance, Hades decides to kidnap Demeter's daughter Persephone to be his bride. Before anyone can rescue her, Hades tricks Persephone into eating pomegranate seeds, which magically binds her to the underworld. So, a strict custody deal is struck. Persephone spends roughly a third of the year down in the underworld and the rest up on Mount Olympus. And here is exactly where the emotional weight of the myth becomes a literal force of nature. Whenever Persephone leaves for the underworld, her mother Demeter falls into such a deep, paralyzing depression that she absolutely refuses to let any plants grow. The leaves die, the ground freezes solid, and humanity starves. And that is exactly how the Greeks wrapped their heads around the origin of winter and the turning of the seasons. Section 3. The Dawn of Humanity, Prometheus and Mankind. So, moving on to us mortals. Zeus had this highly flawed, almost software-like iterative process for creating humans. The earliest generations were a total mess. Human 1.0 lived for 100 years as literal toddlers, but Zeus hadn't really thought about what happens after, so they were entirely scrapped. Human 2.0 grew up faster, but they were relentlessly violent and basically just made weapons to destroy each other. By the time we get to Human 3.0, the mortals are freezing, starving, and struggling in the dark because Zeus stubbornly denied them the privilege of fire. That is, until the Titan Prometheus took pity on them. He totally rebelled against the king of the gods, snuck up to Olympus, hid a spark of fire inside a hollow fennel stalk, and smuggled it down to humanity, handing us the ultimate tool for civilization and survival. Of course, Zeus was absolutely furious about this theft. He chained Prometheus to a mountain to have his liver eaten by an eagle every single day. Yikes. And then he turned his wrath onto humanity. He ordered the gods to sculpt the first mortal woman, Pandora, and presented her with a sealed jar, which is often translated as a box, containing endless pain and suffering. When she opened it, those horrors flew out into the world. Now, we are impartially reporting the source material here. While this ancient story definitely contains inherently misogynistic overtones by placing the blame for the world's evils on a woman, it is vital to understand this as an ancient society's authentic, albeit flawed, attempt to explain the painfully unavoidable origins of real-world diseases, hardship, and famine. Section 4. The Quest of Perseus, the Hero Formula. Fast forward a bit, and we enter the Age of Heroes. To really understand the classic hero formula, let's look at Perseus's origins. He was a demigod born after Zeus magically visited his mother Danae, who had actually been locked inside a bronze chamber by her own father to prevent a prophecy. This establishes a great classic setup, for sure. An absent father, a grand destiny, and a magical adventure. Later on, when an evil king tries to get rid of Perseus, he sends him on a suicide mission to fetch the head of Medusa, a cursed woman with snake hair whose gaze turns people to solid stone. But honestly, Perseus doesn't struggle much. Let's see how this builds, because he is heavily assisted by the gods. The nymphs give him a cap of invisibility and a magic bag, and Athena lends him a highly polished shield to use as a mirror. By looking only at the reflection, Perseus effortlessly bypasses Medusa's deadly gaze and just chops off her head while she's sleeping. So Perseus's journey is a pretty straightforward, massive success. On his way home, he uses Medusa's head to turn a giant sea monster to stone, saves Princess Andromeda, marries her, and turns the evil king who originally sent him away into a statue too. It's a clean sweep. With all his problems seemingly solved, Perseus enters some local athletic games. He throws a heavy bronze discus, but the wind catches it and it wildly veers off course, accidentally striking and killing an old man in the crowd. Well, that old man happened to be the very grandfather who locked his mother away, fulfilling the ancient prophecy in a moment of brilliant, tragicomic irony. It's the ultimate smooth ride for a hero, wrapped perfectly in the inescapable grip of fate. Section 5. The Labors of Hercules, the Agonizing Climb. Now, what's really interesting about this transition is that if Perseus had it easy, our next hero had it impossibly hard. Let's look at the universe's greatest champion, Hercules. And actually, quick side note, it's Heracles, not Hercules. Hercules is just what the Romans called him. Anyway, the intense contrast between our two heroes is absolutely staggering. While Perseus was heavily assisted with clear, simple goals, Heracles' entire existence was actively sabotaged by Zeus's fiercely jealous wife, Hera. Hera hated Heracles because he was a walking, breathing reminder of Zeus's infidelity. So to ruin his life, she drove Heracles into his spontaneous, murderous rage. Upon waking from his madness, the devastated hero was forced to atone for his terrible sins by serving his cowardly, deeply unlikable cousin, King Eurystheus. And this brings us to this stark, agonizing number, 12. You see, Heracles was originally only supposed to complete 10 labors to clear his conscience. But Eurystheus was so impossibly petty, he was literally a guy who would hide inside a giant bronze jar whenever Heracles came to town, that he arbitrarily invalidated 2 of the victories. He claimed Heracles got help from his nephew, Iolaus, to cauterize the Hydra, so boom, it didn't count. And he claimed Heracles performed the labor for profit by demanding a portion of cattle to clean the Augean stables. Because of these incredibly weak technicalities, the grueling punishment was artificially bumped up to 12 impossible tasks. But instead of breaking, Heracles proved exactly why he was the most celebrated hero in Greece through this escalating mix of brute force and incredible wits. I mean, when his weapons couldn't pierce the hide of the Nemean lion, he literally just choked it out with his bare hands. He figured out the terrifying Hydra needed fire to stop its regenerating heads. He chased down the super-fast Cyrenean hind relentlessly for a full year. To clean out decades of filth from massive stables in a single day, he diverted the flow of 2 whole rivers. He even managed to outsmart the Titan Atlas into taking back the crushing weight of the sky just so he could steal some golden apples. And for his grand finale, he marched right down into the underworld and dragged Hades' 3-headed dog, Cerberus, right up to the surface. after a lifetime of suffering and unparalleled heroism, the narrative finally reaches its meaningful climax. In a tragic accident, Hercules' wife is tricked by a dying centaur into giving the hero a shirt soaked in poisonous blood, falsely believing it's a love potion. The venom burns Hercules with inescapable agony. To end the permanent torment, Hercules builds his own funeral pyre and throws himself on the flames. But wait, just then, Zeus swoops down, scoops his son up from the fire, and grants him apotheosis. Hercules literally ascends to Mount Olympus, finally makes peace with Hera, and is granted eternal immortality. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this powerful quote directly from our sources. The ancient Greeks really knew how to tell relatable stories that captured the core of the human experience, despite their seemingly fantastical subject matters. Think about it. From cyclical family trauma and dealing with arbitrary authority figures to impossible quests for redemption, these stories aren't just about magic and monsters. They're a mirror reflecting exactly how we process the world and endure its hardships. So what does this all mean for us today? Well, the next time you read a modern superhero comic or watch a huge blockbuster movie, ask yourself, are we really just retelling the exact same epic Greek myths in disguise? Thanks so much for joining this explainer and keep exploring.